Hi, my name is Neal Parker. I'm a student in Professor Trent's LIS 560 class. It's my pleasure today to bring you this instructional design lesson. Store-bought guacamole is really expensive, but with summer almost upon us, there are lots of excellent fresh ingredients we can use to make our own guacamole for much cheaper right here in your own home kitchen. So first, let's walk you through some of the tools you're going to need. The first thing you're going to need is your tasting spoon, your cooking your knife, a spoon for actually getting everything in the Cuisinart, and a cutting board. You're also going to need, for this recipe, a Cuisinart. Although there are excellent ways and other ways of making homemade guacamole, we've chosen to use a Cuisinart because it's a relatively convenient tool and they're not that expensive to buy. So with that, let's get started on how to make homemade guacamole. In this bowl, we have 2 plum tomatoes. They'll be going into the Cuisinart first. I take my spoon and I add. Okay. Having done that, I'm going to add the next ingredients, which are going to be half of an onion and half of a tablespoon of cilantro. Okay. Having done that, we're going to need to grind this down before we obviously add the other ingredients. We're going to take our lid, put it on. Now that we have our ingredients in our Cuisinart, we're going to blend it down. So in this Cuisinart setting, you have 2 options, our chop and our grind. Our chop is if you enjoy kind of a chunkier texture, and grind is for a smoother texture, so it just depends on what your preferences are. For this setting though, we're going to use chopped. Now let's go. Now that we have a nice puree, we're going to add our garlic. I remove the lid, I add the garlic, I reattach the lid, which you'll notice how the foot is to the right, I close, and I resume. Welcome back. So you notice that our Cuisinart is getting a little bit full. And at this stage of the process, it is perfectly acceptable to add our avocados incrementally so our Cuisinart does not overflow. As you can see, we've added 2 slices and this is about perfect. So I'm going to close the lid back on and resume chopping. At this stage that our guacamole mix is starting to acquire the right color and it definitely smells very nice. So let's add our next avocados. We add our 2, close our lid, tighten it up, and we start chopping. We've got our last 2 avocados in. Our lid is securely fastened. Time to make some guac. Alright, so near the end, you notice that our Cuisinart is starting to fill up a little bit. And because the blades are at the bottom, sometimes it's difficult to get the avocados to grind up at this last step. So if you notice that things are kind of floating near the top, you can use a spoon like this to push it down. But just, make sure the Cuisinart's off when you do it. But we've got our avocados nice and pushed it down, so let's make some more guac. So in our last step, we're going to be adding our seasonings. That is our lime, our cumin, and our salt. Now guacamole is a little bit personalized, in that you can season everything to taste the way you want it to. So I recommend you do first is taste a little bit of it. I have a little tasting spoon here. Not some really good guac, but it definitely needs some lime. So let's get started with the limes first. You want to take 1 lime in each hand and squeeze in. Having done that, we're going to add our cumin. So we want about half a teaspoon of ground cumin, which I'll be using with us. Okay. Okay, this is about half a teaspoon here. We're just gonna add it, and we're gonna, obviously mix it up. And then lastly, our salt. Now, I like salt, my girlfriend definitely likes salt, so we're gonna be a little liberal on the salt. So I'm gonna go about 2 spoonfuls. Okay. Having added our seasonings, we're going to reattach our lid and mix it again. We have some good looking guac. Now let's see how it tastes. Outstanding. And that, high schoolers, is how you make some easy, cheap, and very, very tasty guacamole. So with that, I'd like to get into a little bit some of the design choices behind this video. The first thing that we had to learn by trial and error is cooking is a really time-intensive process, more so than I thought. Like, we went through a couple failed demos before where, we tried to show everything and it just ran over. So like kind of editing things down was a big part of this. Another kind of big design component that went into sort of this instructional demo is obviously the ARCS model. So you can see right that when I'm sort of doing this video, I'm following the attention part of the ARCS model by trying to play myself as a character, right? Like, I'm trying to make myself interesting and engaging for the audience. In terms of another attention component, another thing I really strove to do is maintain eye contact with the camera so it's not looking like I'm weirdly sort of migrating all over the place. In terms of relevance, we pitched this before at the front where, we have lots of these fresh vegetables and guacamole is really expensive and look at how easy it is to make our own. In terms of our confidence and satisfaction pieces, obviously for confidence, you can see every step we were showing you a finished product that looked closer and closer to guacamole. Satisfaction, we were actively encouraging our users to taste it throughout the process. As you're kind of tasting the food, you're like, wow, I go from wow, I can't do this, to oh my goodness, this is really easy and really delicious. One reading that really kind of informed a lot of design decisions here was Reynolds' reading from earlier in the quarter on how to sort of apply Zen to presentation formats. What Reynolds really encourages us to do as designers of instructional content is to think about how we can sort of simplify our noise in relation to the signal and how we sort of create clean and elegant presentations. Now, as Reynolds says, this is really hard to do. It's very easy for our presentations to be sort of cluttered with kind of the theatricality of what we're doing because we think we need to draw people in. What he's pointing out, though, is that very often this sort of theatricality we're relying on is actually detracting from the content we're attempting to teach. And so you have to simplify down, but in very targeted ways. I applied this during the demo because while you could see I was kind of impersonal and talking with the audience during the first section and the last section, during the cooking demo itself, I actually tried to keep the message really on point, that the food was sort of front and center of what I was doing because that's what I wanted them to learn. So, I think that kind of division of labor between the character at the beginning and the end is very appropriate, but hopefully in the middle content, it was just about the food. And you got a very clear picture and a very clear focus of this is what I was doing. Anyway, that's all I have on the reflection piece. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and see you.